So this book is set in a fictional Oklahoma town. So, of course, Orky. So this book is... So this book is... Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Evelyn, and we are entering the second half of 2021, which is a mind-blowingly weird thing to say, but it's also very exciting because it means I am back and ready to tell you about a bunch of books that are about to release that you should be on the lookout for. That's right, it's time for round 2 of my most anticipated reads for the year. Today I'll be walking you through some of my most anticipated contemporary reads set to release from July to December 2021. If you're looking for books releasing in June, those will be in the previous videos I made back in January. Next week, I'll be talking about all of the sci-fi and fantasy reads I'm excited about, so if you don't want to miss that, remember to click that subscribe button. There are 2 books that were supposed to appear on this list, but then I was lucky enough to get ARCs of them, and then I read them back to back in the span of 24 hours because I have no self-control, and I love them both very much, so they're not here, but I will be talking about them closer to their respective release dates. Those are Never Saw You Coming by Erin Hahn, which is set to release on September 7th, and If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich, which is set to release on December 7th. So, again, if you want to see the videos in which I talk about those in more detail, remember to click that subscribe button. Now, let's get started. First up, we have Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson, which is set to release on July 6th from Scholastic. After a devastating breakup leaves her an outcast both at school and home, Olivia desperately needs a change. So, of course, she's looking forward to a crush-free weekend with her best friend at Farmland Music and Arts Festival. Tori is about to start college, even though it's the last place she wants to be. She's still reeling from the death of her father, and she has no idea who she wants to be. She's hoping that heading back to the music festival that changed his life will help her find her own way. When the girls' paths cross at Farmland, they're surprised to find that in order to get what they've been searching for, they'll have to find strength in each other and the music. Leah Johnson's debut novel, You Should See Me in a Crown, was one of my and the world's favorite releases of 2020. I even owned 2 copies of this book because I was so desperate to get my hands on one when it was sold out at bookstores across the country, and I ended up with 2. Now, Leah has said that this sophomore novel is going to be very different from Crown, but I'm still super excited about it, specifically because I attended several virtual events last year that Leah spoke at, and every time I heard her talk about her relationship with music and the power of music in her life, it resonated so deeply with me. Music is one of the biggest parts of who I am as a human, and when this book was announced and I saw that it's set at a music festival, I knew that I needed to read it. I'm hoping that I will get the same feeling reading this book as I did just hearing Leah talk about music in general. Next up, we have If You, Then Me by Yvonne Wood, which is set to release on July 6th from Catherine Teigen Books. If you could ask your future self a question, what would it be? Zia is working on an app that would allow you to do just that. Wiser, an artificial intelligence she's designed to answer questions like her future self. In fact, there isn't much else going on in her life except for conversations with a mysterious online crush known only as Object Permanence. Then, one day, she enrolls at an app incubator for tech prodigies called The Foundry. At The Foundry, anything seems possible. She may have accidentally gotten herself a nemesis intent on publicly humiliating her, but she's also had the opportunity to work with her idol, Misty Ernst, and to go on a date with fellow AI programmer Mast. Everything is great. And then, Object Permanence tells her that he, too, is at The Foundry. Suddenly, she finds herself torn between Mast and Object Permanence, not to mention the shiny new future that Misty has envisioned for her. So I love a good plot involving identity shenanigans. It's one of my favorite tropes. So this whole crush on an anonymous internet friend who has suddenly shown up in your real life thing, right up my alley. I'm super excited about that. This book has also been compared to When Dimple Met Rishi, which was one of my favorite contemporary books probably of all time, so I'm very excited to pick it up. Next we have Where It All Lands by Jenny Wexler, which is set to release on July 6th from Wednesday Books. Stevie Rosenstein has never had a true friend, let alone fallen in love. Moving from city to city at the demand of her father's job has made it too hard to care for someone, until she meets Drew and Shane. Drew and Shane are best friends who have supported each other through everything, from family heartbreak to immeasurable loss. When they meet Stevie, a simple coin toss alters the course of their year in unexpected ways. So this book is told in 2 alternate timelines, exploring, I imagine, the 2 different outcomes of this coin toss, probably over the girl. I am always super fascinated by dual timeline stories, so I'm super excited to see this, and Wednesday Books, doesn't miss for me, usually, so I have very high hopes. Next we have Xoxo by Axio, which is set to release on July 13th from Harper Teen. Cello prodigy Jenny's one goal is to get into a prestigious music conservatory. It's not like her to get distracted, but when she meets a mysteriously handsome boy at her uncle's karaoke bar, she allows him to drag her out of her comfort zone for a night of adventure, before he disappears without a word. 3 months later, Jenny and her mother arrive in South Korea to take care of her ailing grandmother, and she's surprised to run into Mystery Boy once again. Jae-woo is not only a student at the same elite arts academy she is enrolled at, he's also a member of one of the biggest K-pop bands in the world, which means he's strictly forbidden from dating. So I don't actually know that much about K-pop as a cultural phenomenon, mostly because I'm just absolutely terrified of any and all music stands. But I am interested in this kind of forbidden love scenario. I also find myself drawn to celebrity love interest stories, and I really loved I'll Be the One by Lila Lee when I read it last year, which also centers around K-pop, and I want to learn more about it. It seems very interesting. I'm just easily overwhelmed when it comes to specifically music fandom. I don't know why, y'all are intense. But I'm very much looking forward to this book. Next we have Like a Love Song by Gabriella Martins, which is set to release on August 3rd from Underlined. Natalie should be living the dream. She's topping the charts and setting records as a Brazilian pop artist, but she's just been humiliatingly dumped on live television. Scrambling to save her career, her PR team comes up with a plan. Get her a fake boyfriend. She was hoping for a bad boy type, but what she gets is William, a soft-hearted British indie film star, instead. You know what's better than regular fake dating, I'm hoping? Celebrity fake dating. The stakes are so much higher. I also think it's really cool that Gabriella Martins is Brazilian and writing about a Brazilian character, because outside of Rio de Janeiro and Carnival, you don't see a lot of representation of Brazilian culture in the media, so I'm very interested to see what she has to say. Next we have Like Other Girls by Britta London, which is set to release on August 3rd from Disney Hyperion. After a fight that totally wasn't absolutely her fault gets her kicked off the basketball team, Mara decides to prove to her coach that she can still be a team player by hitting the gridiron. Good thing, she's a natural football player. Bad thing, she's accidentally inspired 4 other girls, including her crush Valentina and her nemesis Carly, to join up as well. And they are not so naturally talented. I'm not a sports person, but recently, and by recently I mean over the past year or so, I have been reading queer sports books and really loving them. So Ngozi Ukazu's Check Please, Kelly Quinlan's She Drives Me Crazy. There's a new graphic novel coming out this summer called Cheer Up that I loved, and it was also queer. And so, despite the fact that I do not care about football, I have a feeling I'm going to really like this book, simply because of my recent track record with queer sports stories. We'll see. Next we have How Moon Fuentes Fell in Love with the Universe by Raquel Vasquez Gilland, which is set to release on August 10th from Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers. Moon Fuentes, designated background twin, knows that she's destined to be nothing more than her social media influencer sister's camera woman. But when she takes a summer gig as the merch girl for a tour bus full of gorgeous influencers, she unexpectedly begins to question that destiny. Something that makes me very excited about this book is there seems to be a hate-to-love romance kind of deal with this guy on the tour bus who she starts out not standing at all, but obviously that's potentially gonna change, and I really enjoy, I wouldn't say like enemies to lovers, but like a rivals to lovers, or like we got off on the wrong foot and I thought I hated you but actually you're not so bad once I got to know you kind of deal. That's my sweet spot, so I'm very excited for that in this book. Next, we have The Night When No One Had Sex by Kalenna Miller, which is set to release on September 7th from Aw Teen. It's the night of senior prom, and friends Julia, Alex, Zoe, and Madison have made a pact. A sex pact, to be specific. They're all prepared to make the most of their night without parental supervision, armed with a secluded cabin in the woods and plenty of condoms. But as soon as they leave the dance, things begin to fall apart as they each face up against obstacles, from chronic illness to college admissions to family medical emergencies to an incident with a locked closet. So this book is supposed to be told not only from each of the four characters' point of views, but also from, well, not the point of view of their group chat, but you get a glimpse into their group chat as they're communicating with each other throughout this chaotic night. And one of my favorite and least favorite things to read in fanfiction is actually group chat fics, because most of them are awful, but when they're done really well, I really enjoy them. And I really enjoy like reading about teens actually using their phones and using social media. So I'm very interested to see how this group chat is going to be utilized, because I know there are lots of books out there that kind of, you know, have texting in there every once in a while, but this is like stated in the official description of the book, like that the group chat is one of the methods of telling the story, and so I feel like it's going to be more central to the plot than in other stories, so I'm very interested to see how that works out. Next, we have Act Cool by Totally McSmith, which is set to release on September 7th from Quilltree Books. Aspiring actor August Green has landed a coveted spot at a performing arts school in New York, but the only way his conservative parents will let him go is if he promises them he won't transition. August is convinced he can play the role his parents expect from him and stay cool and confident among his talented new friends, until he's cast in an actual role that hits a little too close to home, that of a trans teen whose family is intent on conversion therapy. I'm so intrigued by this premise, specifically because it seems like the book is going to explore kind of what happens when being able to follow your dreams comes into conflict with being able to be yourself to the fullest. And as a creative human being, that's something that I often find myself grappling with, and I'm very interested in seeing it from the perspective of a trans kid, because that takes things kind of to a whole new level, especially with this role that August is being cast in. I feel like this one's probably gonna make me cry. Next, we have Battle of the Bands, an anthology edited by Lauren Gavaldi and Eric Smith, which is set to release on September 14th from Candlewick Press. 15 YA authors and one real-life rock star team up to tell the story of one very life-changing high school rite of passage. So each of the stories in this anthology takes place at the same Battle of the Bands. They are told in somewhat chronological order, and they're all supposed to be interconnected. I love an anthology with interconnected stories. One of my favorites of all time is Let It Snow, and that all three stories in that are interconnected with each other, and so I'm super excited about that. I love it when characters meet other characters, and like when there's cameos, and it just scratches like a very happy itch in my brain. So I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of happiness out of that aspect of the story. I'm also in particular excited about the fact that Ashley Poston and Brittany Cavallaro are both contributors. Next we have Not Here to Be Liked by Michelle Quash, which is set to release on September 14th from Harper Children's. Eliza Kahn is the perfect candidate for editor-in-chief of her school paper, until inexperienced ex-jock Lynn DeMartile decides to run against her on a whim, because he just seems more like a leader, aka he's tall, handsome, and male. Eliza spills her frustration into an essay that accidentally goes viral, sparking a feminist movement. Some people think she's a champion for gender equality. Others accuse her of simply calling misogyny. And to complicate things even further, the school asks her to work alongside Lynn to demonstrate civility. And as she gets to know him, she realizes she may be falling for the face of the patriarchy. I said earlier, I really like this kind of rivals to lovers arc, and this seems to promise me that. As well as I love a just very, very driven female character who knows what the heck she wants, and that definitely seems like Eliza. Next we have As If on Cue by Marissa Cantor, which is set to release on September 21st from Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers. Lifelong rivals Natalie and Reed find themselves going head-to-head once again when their school's art budget faces cutbacks. She's fighting to direct the school's first ever student-written play. But the money would be coming out of the budget of the award-winning band that Reed is a member of. When their rivalry intensifies into an all-out prank war that goes too far, they're forced to come to an awful compromise, writing and directing a musical together. They have no idea how to get along, let alone produce a sold-out show, but if they do well enough, the school will reconsider next year's band and drama budget. This list is just feeding my little rivals to lovers heart today, huh? I was both a band kid and a drama kid in high school, and so I'm very excited for a story that's going to explore the very complicated relationships between the different high school performing arts disciplines, because we all get along to a certain extent, but at the same time, we all kind of hate each other. It's weird, it's a strange dynamic, at least it was at my school, and so I'm very excited to explore that. I also really love Marissa Cantor's first book, What I Like About You, and so I'm excited to return to her writing. Next we have You Can Go Your Own Way by Eric Smith, which is set to release on November 2nd from Inkyard Press. Whitney Mitchell's life just fell apart, and now she's spending her senior year running social media for her father's chain of gaming cafes, a job that consists of a lot of trading insults with the decrepit old pinball arcade across town. Adam Stillwater is determined to protect that pinball arcade, the last piece of his father he has left, from being turned into another lifeless gaming cafe. When a huge snowstorm hits, trapping the two of them inside the arcade, cut off from the outside world, all that tension begins to melt away. But what happens when the storm is over? Do I even need to say it at this point? I'm gonna focus on a different trope here that I love and don't actually get to see that often, which is characters being trapped together specifically because of weather. Maybe that's just because I'm from Oklahoma, land of tornadoes. We're actually in a tornado watch right now as I'm filming this video, and so I've spent a lot of time trapped in a storm shelter with my parents. I use trapped loosely here. I've never been in actual danger from a tornado. But there's this weird feeling when it comes to like bad weather and forced proximity, and I've always thought that like that would go really well with romantic tension, especially when it's two people who shouldn't like each other or don't want to like each other. Oh, speaking of Oklahoma, next up we have So This Is Christmas by Tracy Andreen, which is set to release on October 5th from Viking Books for Young Readers. When Finley Brown returns from boarding school to her hometown of Christmas, Oklahoma, she's surprised to find things have changed. Her parents are separated, her nemesis is working at her grandmother's inn, and her best friend and ex-boyfriend are together now. Weirdest of all, a boy she may or may not have tricked into believing that Christmas is an idyllic holiday paradise has shown up on her grandmother's doorstep. Now it's up to her to make sure he gets the Christmas he was promised. So this book is set in a fictional Oklahoma town, so of course I, an Okie born and raised, am very intrigued because I don't see Oklahoma as a setting for a lot of not historical fiction or tornado thriller books. I believe the author did at least go to school here, so we shall see how accurate it seems to me. Also very interesting is that Tracy Andreen apparently writes Christmas movies for Hallmark, so she should know her way around a holiday romance, and I love a good holiday romance, so I'm very excited for this one. Next we have Our Way Back to Always by Nina Moreno, which is set to release on October 12th from Little Brown Books for Young Readers. Louisa Lou Patterson and Sam Alvarez used to be inseparable, growing up across the street from each other in the small town of Port Coral, Florida. But after an incident in middle school, they haven't spoken in 4 years. Sam is now a popular golden boy, while introverted romantic Lou is happy playing video games and writing fan fiction by herself. It's the summer before their senior year, and with her older sister giving up a scholarship to Princeton to have a baby, Lou is now the sole holder of their mother's expectations. When she discovers a bucket list she and Sam wrote together as kids, she's shocked to find she hasn't completed anything on it. So she sets out to finish the list, with Sam inexplicably deciding to tag along. The future may be too close and way too scary, but with the list to guide them, they might just find their way back to each other. I'm so excited about this book. First of all, I love Nina Moreno's debut, Don't Date Rosa Santos. Y'all know I don't shut up about it on this channel, so I'm very excited to return not only to her writing, but to Port Coral, the town that book is set in. I love best friends to lovers, especially when there's some detours along the way. It's actually the romance structure of my own contemporary novel that I'm writing right now, so I'm very excited to read Nina Moreno's take on it because I love her writing, like I just said. The idea of a bucket list is so fun. I've also been a sucker for like end of high school novels ever since I graduated because the universe is scary. And I love it when books admit that. So I am very much looking forward to reading this book. Next we have The Big Reveal by Jen Larson, which is set to release on December 7th from Henry Holt & Company. When fat, fierce dancer Addie is accepted into a prestigious dance program, she is thrilled until she realizes she doesn't have the money to go. So she and her friends come up with an unusual fundraising idea, a secret, invitation-only burlesque show. But when word gets out, the slut and body shaming begin. I am so intrigued by this concept. First of all, who can read the phrase secret invitation only burlesque show and not be excited? I want to meet the main character with the confidence to pull that shit off. That's amazing. I also was a dancer for 10 years, so I just love a good dance narrative regardless, and so I'm very, very excited about this, especially since it's going to be tackling such important topics like slut shaming and body shaming. And last but certainly not least, we have How Not to Fall in Love by Jacqueline Perkins, which is set to release on December 21st from HMH Books for Young Readers. After years of working in her mother's bridal shop, seeing all the petulant prides and squabbles of her weddings up close, Harper is convinced that romance is nothing more than a marketing tool. Her hopeless romantic best friend Theo couldn't agree less. All it takes is a single date for his nerdy self to start dreaming up a happily ever after. After he gets his heart broken for the umpteenth time, Harper offers to teach him how not to fall in love. But as their lessons progress, Harper finds herself harboring some feelings for Theo that, if confessed, would undermine everything she's taught him. This book sounds so fun. I was actually lucky enough to get an arc of Heartstrings and Other Breakable Things, also by Jacqueline Perkins, back when that released, and that book was such a fun read. I swear I read it in like less than a day, and so I'm really excited because I'm definitely a lot more interested in this premise, but I know that I like her as a storyteller. Who doesn't love the cynic about romance paired with the hopeless romantic? Like, that's such a classic pairing, and I'm very excited, especially since it seems like by teaching Theo how not to fall in love, Harper's put herself in an interesting love predicament. Of course I want to see what happens next. Alright, so there you have it. Those are all the contemporary books releasing in the second half of 2021 that I cannot wait to try to get my hands on. Just a reminder that next week I'll be posting my video on sci-fi and fantasy releases that I'm anticipating, so if you want to see that, remember to click this subscribe button so you can stick around. And in the meantime, while you're waiting for all these lovely books to release, you can go ahead and check out the 2 anticipated reads videos I made at the beginning of the year for some books that should all already be out. With that being said, my name is Evelyn, I make new videos every magical Monday, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye!